Good afternoon, good evening. Calling this meeting to order. Ross, could we get roll call, please? Present.
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 Absent.
Present.
Great, thank you. We have a vote to make to consolidate agenda items 3 and 4. We would like to omit agenda item 4, which is a presentation by the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability and Resiliency on heat resilience. We have supplemented that information with handouts that are in the corner of this room. So can I get a motion by our members to omit item number 4?
Moved, Chair.
Second? All in favor, please say aye. Motion has carried. We are omitting item number 4. Great. Well, hello, everyone. We are on item number 3, which is an introduction of the Climate Change Commission. This is our first meeting in person, so we're really happy to be in the Waianae community. Our commission was started based on a charter vote, and the charge of our commission is really to convene and provide the latest science and information on climate change to Hawaii with a specific lens on Oahu. That information can serve as guidance to the mayor, the executive office, city council members. So we each are here with a very different focus, and we wanted to take a moment to just introduce ourselves so you could understand sort of our lens, our subject matter. So my name is Melanie Islam. I'm an architect, sustainability director with Mason. We're an architecture firm that has been practicing in Hawaii for over 50 years. And so I work in the intersection of building and climate change, really looking at how do we create more healthier, resilient spaces now and for our future communities.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Kiana Otsuka. Outside of the commission, I work as a transportation planner, and I work at the intersection of climate, transportation, and social justice. Mahalo for having us.
Aloha mai kākou. I'm Brad Romine. I'm a coastal geologist by background. I work at the University of Hawaii for the Sea Grant program there. I also help to coordinate a program called the Pacific Islands Climate Adaptation Science Center. So a lot of my work is around sea level rise, coastal impacts of erosion and flooding, but have really expanded that to help support research and adaptation and community engagement, broader climate challenges, and helping to coordinate a project now called Pili na Moku, which I'm excited to share some more about coming up.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Sandy Ma, and I'm an attorney. I have an advanced law degree in environmental law, and I have experience in government and policy and working around managed retreating from the shoreline due to sea level rise. And thank you for having us. Looking forward to engaging with you all. Aloha.
I'm going to just take a few minutes of pause. Our last commissioner is arriving here. But in addition to the handouts that we have about heat resilience, I think we do also have copies of our past guidance documents, and they range on the cost of social carbon, looking at greenhouse gas reduction, sea level rise, what have you. So feel free to look for that information. Tongue twister. I'd like to turn it over to our last commissioner, Dr. Kirsten Olsen, to do a short intro.
Aloha, kalamai. It took me a little bit longer than I anticipated. I'm a professor of ecological economics at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and I focus on the value of nature to people and how we can include that value in decision making. Aloha.
Well, that's us, the commission. So happy to be here. Now we're going to move on to our first presentation item. It's a presentation on reducing wildfire risk in Waianae, Mauka to Makai by Clay Traunernicht, Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I think, yeah. Why don't you take the mic?
Yeah, hi. So I also work at the University of Hawaii. I've been working on wildfire science and management, so more focused on what do we do to reduce fire risk for a number of years, and I've doing lots of talks in Waianae, worked on a bunch of projects, and so just to put a short presentation, just to guide you guys to some resources if you're interested. So you can go to the next slide. Just a little history. If you want to zoom in on Waianae, we're in one of the most fire-prone areas of the state, and I don't think you need a haole from town to come here and tell you that. If you just look out the back, all of these valleys have burned multiple times in recent years, and so it definitely poses risk to our community. I think the most recent, really scary one was 2018. We had 3 valleys burning at once, and it was all hands. Fire department was pretty much spread as thin as they've had ever been, and so we've had some very close calls, and of course the attention now after Lahaina is very real and very serious. So you go to the next slide. I think it's also important just to understand the historical sort of driver of this is ultimately, unfortunately, it's not climate change. It's really due to the proliferation of grasses and fuels, the brush out there, which is really tied to decline in agriculture. So this is the only data I'm really going to show, but the increase in area burned over the last century, about that top figure, and then we have decline in grazing and decline in agriculture, including sugarcane and pineapple. And so really, as we pulled off the land, we see this transformation of active farmlands to grasslands, shrublands that burn all the time. You go to the next slide. And ultimately, what we have experienced is this shift in really productive land use in recent, in living memory. Prior to plantation agriculture, this is the overlay of kind of the Mahele and Kuleana Act maps over Lahaina, and you can just see this whole landscape was actively used, it was actively managed. So just thinking about where we need to head to reduce risk around our communities, it's a much sort of bigger problem than just at the household. We really need to be thinking about landscapes. Next slide. And where we want to be, where we typically are, this is just a circle of actions related to fire risk. A fire happens and we tend to be sort of in the suppression mindset. So this is firefighters coming and responding. And then what we can do after the fact, so after either community burns or the landscape burns, there's not a whole lot we can do as far as post-fire response. You're sort of backpedaling and trying to kind of pick up the pieces. Whereas if we're sort of in this prevention and mitigation mode, prevention being how do we reduce ignitions, right? Almost all of our ignitions are caused by people. And then mitigation are those actions we can take to reduce risk, both in the built environment as well as around our homes. This is the cool thing about fire. Unlike a lot of climate-related risks, we actually have pretty direct control over through fuels management and increasing access, things like that. Next slide. So just a few kind of context here. This is I jumped the gun here, but basically, dry weather, right? These kind of climatic patterns that are actually becoming more frequent. So these more intense El Niños lead to drought, for example. Very abundant human-caused ignitions. So Oahu gets about 600 ignitions a year on average. And then vegetation. So like I said, all these grasses and shrubs out there that are very fire-prone, all brought in here from other parts of the world. So this is really what we're dealing with, and it's these grasses and the vegetation is the thing we have direct control over. So that actually is the bright side of this equation here, is that we can exert control, we can manage fuels to reduce risk, again, at our household level, but also across the bigger, larger landscape. Next slide. So yeah, the fire environment is kind of what we call the bigger landscape picture. So all these changes, since the decline of plantation agriculture, for example, what really drives how we're using the lands around us. And then the built environment is also really important to consider, because this is things like access. Can the fire department get in and around your house? Is there water available? What are the road conditions, things like that. And so a lot of times we sort of tend to go and jump into fuels management, like we need to mow and cut brakes. But there's other things, just like water availability, that might be a little bit more practical to start with, at least. Next slide. And this is the most important thing, resources. So I think for the general audience here today, this set of resources that by my partners, Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization, have put out a bunch of stuff for homeowners. So there's tons of stuff you can do around the house to reduce the risk that it's going to catch fire. Most home ignitions are not caused by actually contacting your house. It's these ember showers that happen during a wildfire. And so there's all kinds of things for like removing the vegetation immediately within that 5-foot perimeter, making sure you don't have flammable furniture on the outside. And there's tons of resources that Hawaii Wildfires put together. They also have this FireWise program. I'm not really sure what the status is for Waianae right now. I know we had been talking to folks at Sea Country a while back, and Nanakuli might be in the process of becoming FireWise. But that basically is a program to organize your community and to try to, it actually makes you eligible for funding programs to do cleanups, things like that. Next slide. And then if you're interested in larger landscapes, we have another set of resources at Pacific Fire Exchange, fuel management guide and planning, pre-fire planning guides that just tell you like what are the things you need to be thinking about. Next. Yeah, and I think this is one of the take-homes that a lot of people are calling me and asking, should I cut down all my trees? And it's really these surface fuels and ladder fuels, kind of the grasses and shrubs that we're really worried about. And just to keep in mind that shade is your friend. Don't cut your trees down. Just make sure that you are not allowing these sort of debris to pile up underneath them. Yeah, so this is I think a little bit of a misconception because we're a lot of times lifting lessons and information from the mainland that doesn't really apply here in the tropics. And I think, what do I have? Next slide. I don't know how many more. You can skip this. So the infrastructure, access. There's different ways to do fuel breaks from mowing. You can do grazing. This is actually a project right here in Waianae at this Bula Iaea's farm where he's doing a graze fire break. And I think the lesson or message I want to leave with you guys is Waianae is really ahead of the curve. DOFA, Division of Forestry and Wildlife, is doing green breaks. So if you're interested in like low flammability vegetation, there's another resource at Pacific Fire Exchange. There's all these projects actually happening. Waianae is way ahead of the curve. But we need to literally connect them and sort of fill in all the pukas on the landscape. So if you got questions or want to learn about any of these other projects, let me know.
Well, Clay, thank you so much. I think if you could remain up here for a few minutes. No problem. I think just the commissioners, if we have any questions, we'd like to ask you a few. And the community, what we would love to do is reserve all the questions to the presentation to item number 9. But Clay, thank you so much for sharing information on kind of just protecting, hardening your home. I think the green breaks was super, super useful, what have you. Is there like a comprehensive map which shows all of these locations for Waianae, or is that something we...
Mike?
There's a mic over there.
Yeah, so that's one of the limitations. We actually, all these projects have not been mapped out, so we don't know the locations of all, I know where a lot of them are, but we haven't actually systematically mapped out these kinds of projects. But we've got funding, we've started in central Oahu, which sort of includes the North Shore and some areas of urban Honolulu. It's tied to Army funding. This is kind of the only game in town at the moment, the Department of Defense funding, unfortunately, or fortunately. But yeah, so we've started that process, but yeah, it's really in order to sort of see what projects are happening and then where the pukas are, where we need to plan out others. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Clay. Can you share maybe an example or two about how you may be integrating lessons learned from the Lahaina fires into your information, guidance, community engagement?
Yeah, lessons learned from Lahaina. All the lessons that we learned from Lahaina, we'd already learned, right? So what we're talking about now is like, how do we actually implement practices? And so like the strategies are identifiable. We can actually go in the back of Waianae Kai and see multiple examples of different strategies, from mode and fuel breaks to grazing through green breaks. I think now the situation is we're in this landscape of litigation, right? So all of a sudden, large landowners are going to be forced to take action, and whether they sort of choose and how they choose to mitigate the fuels is really going to depend on the cost. And so we have an opportunity, I think, to really reimagine what we do with these lands, whether we use them for food production, but if sort of it's left, I think, in that context where it's going to be the bottom dollar. What's the cheapest option out? We're probably going to be mowing and spraying a lot of herbicide around, so that the landowners, large landowners in particular, including the state, are not held liable. Yeah.
Aloha, Clay. Thank you. So you mentioned the litigation aspect as one of the key drivers of landowner behavior change.
Yeah, for the moment. Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Or I should say recently. Like just brand new. Yeah.
But what do you see as some of the opportunities to incentivize the change in land management?
Well, I think it's really easy to demonstrate that other forms of land use are actually more effective at reducing fire risk. So like agriculture is the best thing we could do. And so even grazing, right, you can do larger swaths of land. The labor costs are probably cheaper on the long run. So that's probably, as from a fire risk side, it's probably the most basic fundamental thing is to show that if you're managing a land for food production, for example, or just doing reforestation, things like that, the risk reduction is actually larger. Because if you imagine, if I mow a 30 or 50 foot or even 100-foot fuel break that's just really low grass, and we have an 80-mile-an-hour wind event, the effectiveness of that's pretty questionable. Those extreme cases like what happened in Lahaina. A fire break wouldn't have happened, but to sort of say that it's hard to say that we would have changed anything because there's nothing was really being done before, and I think that's what everyone here in Waianae knows is the situation here. We haven't seen a lot of improvement as far as fuels management is concerned.
Hi, Clay. Thanks for your presentation. Sort of a follow-up to Kirsten's question about how do we incentivize, or is there anything the city can do to help incentivize landowners to choose strategies that are co-beneficial? Like, I would hate to start spreading more or spraying more herbicides if there's another solution that can bring about other co-benefits. So last month we had a presentation that talked about the sort of cross-section of tourism, climate change, and invasive species. So how are we, we talked about several different strategies, but I want to hear from your perspective, anything the city can do to incentivize like these strategies that can help multiple challenges we're facing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it just comes down to funding to implement, right? And so we could do grazing, for example. That's like a no-brainer, I think, for roadside fuels management, for example, or a lot of these steep terrain that we're sort of challenged with here, especially in Waianae. So, like, how do you make those funds available, and how do you sort of build an industry around grazing? We're lucky on Oahu to have grazers, for example, that will do contracts like under the solar panels, for example. And there's a couple bills that have just been passed that are going to hopefully make those opportunities available. As far as incentivizing those practices versus just mowing and spraying, again, what sort of mechanism could you imagine to try to say you'll get some tax cuts? Will you get, subsidies for crop production? I think we all know the big challenges for farming. It's like cost of land, cost of labor, no guaranteed prices for kalo, for example. So those are basically turning and facing really big challenges that are limiting our ability to produce food. I think it's the same bundle of problems that you're running into to tackle fire risk. Okay. That's all right.
Thank you, Clay.
Yeah.
Super informative. I think we'll have more discussion on this, but I do love the idea of co-benefits of incentives. Thank you, Director. We're going to move on to item number 6, which is a presentation on Energize Waianae Moku, community-led planning by Resiliency Energy System by Parker Kushima, State Energy Office Wayfinder Program, and Charlotte Poe Lay Foundation.
Testing. Hello. Aloha kākou. My name is Parker Kushima. I'm an outreach and community engagement specialist with the Hawaii State Energy Office, born and raised in Ewa Beach, Oahu. So appreciate the opportunity to be speaking here in Waianae. Mahalo to the commissioners and to our guests today for having me too. I'd also like to introduce Charlotte Poe, 7th generations Waianae Valley Homestead, previous chair of the Waianae Coast Neighborhood Board, and she's feeling ill right now, but any other day she would be here carrying this story, and I will do my best to tell it. I'd like to share today about some of our ongoing and previous efforts under a banner of Energize Waianae Moku. Basically a collection of initiatives and programs all focused on supporting Waianae Moku residents in better understanding our energy system across the state, here on Oahu and in Waianae, sharing information and resources to help folks access programs to help save money or participate and share their mana'o in energy planning processes. And here you see a bit of a timeline of where we've gone so far. So we'll start up at the top with the next slide, please. So I've had the privilege of working over the past few years alongside community leaders like Shar to raise up this Energize Waianae Moku effort. It really started out with the question of how do we help Waianae Moku residents learn more about energy, save money, get more engaged and involved in decisions that are often decision-making processes that often or historically leave out our community members. We started these efforts through a whole bunch of things, creating accessible energy information about our energy ecosystem, money-saving programs and resources, and sharing that information at things like farmers markets. We were spending quite a bit of time at the Nanakuli Village Farmers Market, Christmas on the Avenue, and other large-scale community events to help build awareness about energy and the conversations happening here on Oahu and in Waianae Moku. We had the great opportunity to work really closely with a lot of collaborators and partners from across community organizations, the energy industry and government, a few of who are listed here: Hawaiian Electric, Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Hawaii Energy, the City and County of Honolulu's Resilience Office, Lei Foundation with Shar, the Waianae Sustainability Cooperative, and across the island with Huio Hau'ula too. Another program I'd like to raise is Solarize 808, which is still an ongoing program, but was included kind of in the start of a lot of these Waianae Moku energy conversations. That program was focused on bringing information about rooftop solar from all of these various energy industry partners and government agencies to Waianae Moku community members to learn more about what the process of getting rooftop solar is. And the initial intent was to gather interest from community members who wanted to get rooftop solar so that we could ideally approach a contractor who met several community criteria to bulk purchase rooftop solar and bring the costs down. That program has gone through several changes throughout the years. It's now being spearheaded by CNHA, the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, and it shifted more into kind of a hub for learning about rooftop solar and the various programs and processes around them. Ideally still trying to bring down costs, but we've ran into some issues with the bulk purchasing and contractor procurement side of things. So still going strong, but still trying to figure out the right way to move forward with that. As we move forward with Energize Waianae Moku, Lei Foundation and Shar had the opportunity to apply for several awards and grants to continue funding these efforts. The first of which took place over the course of last year, was a program called the Community Energy Innovation Prize, or CEIP. And this was a grant prize awarded by the Department of Energy and the National Renewable Energy Labs, or NREL. Through this project, Lei Foundation received funding to hold a series of workshops, focus groups, broader community engagement efforts to start building up more formalized conversations around energy planning here in Waianae. Part of the outcome of that project was creating a draft energy vision for an energy plan. We were looking at identifying and uplifting community values and priorities, looking at existing and ongoing community planning efforts such as the Waianae Sustainable Communities Plan, which is hopefully releasing soon, which we got support and agreement from the Department of Permitting, Planning and Permitting, the city and county, to include what we found, what we heard from community for an energy portion in the Sustainable Communities Plan. Next slide, please. This is just a quick slide showing some of our key partners in the CEIP project. In addition to some I mentioned, Lei Foundation, us at the Hawaii State Energy Office, and the Waianae Sustainability Cooperative, We also partnered with the Sierra Club of Hawaii, Lauren Ballesteros Watanabe, who helped in developing a lot of our materials, facilitating conversations, and helping us keep on track. Next slide, please. Yes, as part of that project, I had mentioned before that we were developing accessible energy information and materials for our community as part of the initial Energize Waianae-Moku efforts. We increased our capacity for that through the funding and added capacity of the CEIP grant monies to develop additional accessible energy information, which was distributed both digitally and in person and virtually through the series of workshops we held, covering things like the elements of the electric grid, currently available sources of renewable energies here in Hawaii, all with the goal of building community awareness and knowledge of Hawaii's energy systems, and then increasing community capacity for these more nuanced, but most importantly, holistic energy planning conversations. Throughout all of these projects, we didn't want to be siloed into just conversations about energy. We know that energy has really important nexuses with water, with wildfire mitigation, agriculture, housing, affordability, all of these priority topics for us here in Hawaii. So we really wanted to not leave any of that off the table. Another big priority for our team and for Waianae-Moku, as we've heard, is investing in our OPO, in our next generation of leaders here in Waianae-Moku. So through the CEIP project, we had the opportunity to work in partnership with a program called Pua Kaiaulu, which is hosted by Places and Ka'ala Farm, where we engage a group of students who had chosen to focus on energy as one of several topics, including water, fire mitigation, and food sustainability, and others. We worked with the students in a couple of days. I have a photo there of us at a workshop with them up at Ka'ala Farm. We also held a couple of workshops with them, both at Nanakuli High School and virtually, where we are sharing information kind of similar to what we're sharing in these broader community workshops to help them learn more about not just our energy systems, but their role, the power and importance of their voice as youth in these energy planning conversations. We also worked with them to develop a presentation to our Public Utilities Commission, or the PUC, where a commissioner was in attendance, for them to share their thoughts and their desires for an energy system in Waianae-Moku. That was a great experience, and we really hope to continue our work with youth, both inside and outside of the schools. Moving right along to the last and the current ongoing effort that we're taking in energy conversations, Waianae-Moku, led by Shar Poi and the Lay Foundation, was selected for the Energy Technology Innovation Partnership Project, or ETIP. This is a project or a program where communities around the country and in several territories can receive technical assistance from the national labs. In this case, we're working with the National Renewable Energy Lab, or NREL, to develop a formalized strategic energy plan for their community. It also happens that shortly after we began this process, the Hawaii State Energy Office was selected as a regional partner for the ETIP project. So we've been working with Shar and Waianae-Moku in these energy conversations up to this point, but this really helped to formalize our partnership. Similar to our previous CEIP program, a big focus of this was also incorporating existing and ongoing community plans, so continuing that work and folding into things like the Sustainable Community Plan here. Next slide, please. Through this project, similar to the other ones, but in, as you can see, a bit more detail, we were focused on both developing materials not only about the project itself and this partnership with the National Renewable Energy Lab, but fleshing out our toolkit of energy information for community members. Things like, what does our energy or our electricity landscape look like across the state? What exactly is this project that we're doing? What are the outcomes? How is this plan going to be used? And we're continuing to develop ongoing materials as we continue having workshops to keep folks up in the loop. It's something that we've seen a lot is attendance at community events can sometimes be difficult. So having materials to help folks catch up to speed and understand what we've discussed so far was a big priority for us. Slide, please. This is a screenshot from a presentation we had this morning with community leaders in Waianae-Moku. We'll be having one next Tuesday morning as well for government agency, industry, and nonprofit partners who are all going to be a part of continued energy discussions here in Waianae-Moku. Last slide here, I think next steps. We have a timeline here showing both our first workshop in February, ongoing small group one-on-one sessions to help build out community perspective and priority. And what we're ramping up for right now is both the completion of a first draft of our strategic energy plan at the end of May, and then currently undefined date in June where we'll have our second in-person community workshop. So we hope to see folks there. We'll be sending out information. We can share it with the commission as well. And really looking to get as much community voice into this strategic energy plan as possible so that it can be as supportive and as aligned with Waianae-Moku priorities. And with that, mahalo.
Parker, that was great. In essence of time, we have space for one comment from the commissioners. Sandy?
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. So glad to see this happening in Waianae. Are you looking at decentralized generation in your planning?
So right now, everything is kind of on the table. There are, the first step of this is identifying just what folks really want to be including in the strategic energy plan. Some examples of the priorities that have come up right now are focusing on Waianae Comprehensive Health Center as a central resilience hub and what a network of resilience hubs could look like, and distributed energy generation that might maybe be included in that. Some people are interested in looking at additional energy generation options for Waianae-Moku, such as ocean-based or marine energy, OTEC or ocean thermal energy conversion, as well as green hydrogen. Rooftop solar is still a big priority, kind of following on from our roots in Solarize 808, but we have not yet made a strict decision of where we'd like to take next steps of the strategic energy plan.
And Parker, quickly, where can folks find more information about the work you're doing?
Well, I have cards. We do not yet have a website for Energize Waianae-Moku, but reach out to me and I will connect you with our team and with Shar, who probably would be the best one to talk to learn more.
Because we're recording this, can you say what your email address is?
Yes, my email address is parker.d.kushima@hawaii.gov. Thank you very much.
Excellent presentation, Parker. Looking forward to learning more about ETIP. We're going to start our final presentation on Pili na Moku, a project advancing climate resilience in the Waianae area and around Hawaii through Aina restoration community networking by our own Commissioner, Dr. Brad Romine.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to speak from here. Is that okay with the camera and everything? Okay, great. I have my notes then. Better chance to keep me on time then. Again, I'm Brad Romine, Hawaii Sea Grant as my day job at the University of Hawaii Manoa, where I also make my home. I do want to share some on this pretty recent project, Pili na Moku, that's focused on advancing climate resilience in Waianae and around Hawaii through Aina restoration and community networking. The project, Pili na Moku, was developed with our partners. Oh, if you wouldn't mind going back one slide. Just talk a little bit about the genesis of the project. The name was developed with our partners. It really is intended to describe the interconnectedness of communities, ecosystems, and stewardship and governance systems across the islands that this project is supporting. Hawaii received $68.5 million through this grant for a 5-year effort through the NOAA Climate Resilience Regional Challenge. 80% of that money is going out the door in subawards to partners. The project officially kicked off in October 2025, so we're about 6 months into this 5-year project already. And we focused those last 6 months on project startup and hiring, and we'll be expanding our outreach over the rest of the year and throughout the project. Okay, next slide, thank you. Climate change, as we're all familiar, is already impacting the Hawaiian Islands through things including coastal flooding, erosion linked to rising sea levels, more frequent and intense storm and drought events, wildfires we heard about earlier, loss of natural and cultural resources, and deterioration of critical infrastructure. Holistic resilience efforts implemented from Maukana Makai are really essential to reducing these climate-related hazards. And through our local partnerships, and which we aim to really grow in the coming years, We hope to support a reinvigorated Moku and Ahupua'a system applied in a contemporary context to build a resilient future for our communities. And this will require investing in both the functionality of our ecosystems and their interconnectedness, and balancing local place-based knowledge and stewardship with government management and regulation. Okay, next slide, thanks. Our project activities with our partners are grouped into 6 kind of Moku scale resilience actions, or you can think of them as themes. The actions and project activities were developed in cooperation with our initial partners based on existing priorities and needs. These first 3 actions are mostly focused on on-the-ground restoration and resource stewardship efforts to reduce climate risk by restoring ecological functionality, and those include conserving and restoring forests and watersheds, enhancing regional community-based coastal stewardship, and restoring marine abundance. Next slide, thanks. The other 3 actions or themes are more cross-cutting and support community-centered governance strategies, that is cooperative stewardship and co-development of restoration and adaptation efforts, and help support the networks necessary for communities to direct adaptation decisions about their places and their futures. And the kind of 3 themes for these broader cost-cutting efforts include sharing knowledge and strengthening networks across communities, reducing risk and improving disaster resilience, and advancing community governance, that being like shared stewardship and cooperation. The project actions are led by an initial collaborative of 12 partners receiving subawards under this award. The partners span state and county government agencies, academia, national and local nonprofit organizations, and collectives of community stewards. This group, partners, are really just meant to be the beginning, as the team will be working to continually expand partnerships and cooperation in Waianae and statewide. Our intent is to work together to build an enduring program and long-term partnerships that will support community governance and Aina stewardship for beyond the 5-year funding that has been provided by NOAA. In this first project year, we're focusing on project startup, expanding partnerships, capacity building, and understanding community needs and priorities. We're hiring 5 Moku Resilient Stewardship Coordinators who will be responsible for coordinating across collaborators in the Moku and expanding partnerships in the communities. And it's my pleasure to introduce Tara Ferron, who's here with us today, our Waianae Moku Coordinator. Tara has been working on the Waianae coast for many years as an educator and community partner. And I hope you all get a chance to chat with Tara, get to know her, and ultimately get some opportunities to work together. The project funds the state is receiving and coming in through Hawaii are also providing sustained support for our partners, for other hiring, jobs, and funding volunteer service learning positions. Okay. Some of the initial project activities this grant will support include community-led wildfire management and native vegetation green breaks with connections to the wildfire protection plans and education programs, community-driven shoreline management and adaptation plans, enhancing local aquaculture, coral reef restoration, limu stewardship, expanded community-engaged monitoring and protection of marine resources, support for community resilience and disaster preparedness, and internship and local capacity building. We also set aside $10 to $15 million in total, so a couple, maybe a few $1,000,000 per the 5 Moku will be working in, including Waianae, for a community resilience grants program that's going to be starting in the 2nd year of the project. This will be a competitive funding opportunity for additional activities aligned with the 6 themes I mentioned, and it'll be focused on implementation of restoration, community engagement, shared governance and stewardship, and restoration and workforce development. Okay, last slide. This is our contact information. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. Tara here in Waianae, myself, Katie Hinson are the project coordinators on this project at Sea Grant, and we'd be happy to connect you with our partners as well if you have particular questions, want more information about individual project actions and opportunities for expanding, building on great work that's already happening here in Waianae is really a focus we want to do. So this is just the start of the conversations and building on the work together. Thank you.
Well, Commissioner Mine, that was excellent. I love the section on shared governance. I really think that's an opportunity of building sort of continued strength and capacity within the community. Just reading sort of the 6 topics, I just see already kind of alignment with the 2 earlier presenters. So I just, I think it's more about sort of seeing where the program goes because it's in the early infancy. But I think it could be a really great model. So aside from your information and the website, that's where people can continue to get more info on the work that's continuing. First meeting. Well, thank you. So any questions from our commissioners?
Thanks, Brad. I wanted to know a little bit more about the Community Resiliency Grant Program. I thought it might be interesting for the folks in the room and then folks who are watching this later to know a little bit more about who's eligible to apply and some eligible activities. Can you share a little bit more information?
Yeah, happy to. What I can share so far, we're still in the process of developing what that's going to look like, the request for proposals for that. I can tell you broadly it'll be aligned with the themes and the overall vision of this program. Of course, needs to be aligned with the NOAA funding opportunity that we already got funding through. But we really want to see this money going to on-the-ground efforts, community organizations in Waianae and the other MOKU we're working in. And so broadly align it with the overall goals, the objectives, the focus areas of this. But we're going to spend, particularly this first year, talking to the community, understanding the priorities, where are the needs, gaps we can help fill with this money. This project is focused on implementation, which is one of the things I'm so excited about. I work to fund a lot of research at the university and continue certainly, but we're really looking to take action on this. Understand what are the priorities in the community already that have been identified through other planning efforts, discussions, working groups. Understand those and see what we can meet with this funding. This is Hawaii's award. We really have the kuleana of stewarding this from University and Sea Grant. Very proud to do that, but a big sense of challenge and responsibility with that. So we really want to see this meeting the on-the-ground needs of community.
Any other questions? Mike?
Sorry, just a quick question, Commissioner. Is it for the entire state or just Oahu?
It is statewide. We are focused on 5 MOKU in the state, though. Waianae being the one here on Oahu, west side of Kauai, the Kona side of Kauai. Most of Molokai we're calling a Hui Moku, but really the whole south shore of Molokai, central Maui, and then the Kohala Moku of the Big Island. And that was in part to meet the requirements of the NOAA opportunity to be regional. What does regional mean in Hawaii? We certainly, the Moku and Ahupua'a system came to our partners and us is like, okay, that makes sense. That's the fit for Hawaii. But there's going to be, the concerted effort in those MOKU, they share a lot of similarities, leeward areas. They really haven't received a lot of the funding for kind of restoration, resilience, adaptation work. But on the flip side, there's a lot of great work going on already that we want to help expand and support too in these areas. There are a lot of things that will be more Paiana scale, statewide, networking, sharing best practices. Some of these gatherings like KUA supports for the Limu Hui and fish ponds practitioners we're going to support through this. They're more broadly statewide. Yeah, my pleasure.
Great. Excellent project. I think we all look forward to learning more about it as it grows. So thank you, Commissioner. Okay, this brings us to the end of our presentation, which leaves us roughly 15 minutes for community. We do need to get to agenda item, which is very brief, which is communication and correspondence from the public. We received one communication, which is really asking us if this meeting would be virtual or the virtual option. We are recording this, so I believe the Office of Sustainability will be presenting this on a YouTube channel or on the Facebook, so that's where people can tune in. But now I'd like to get to agenda item number 9. Any comments from community members in the public to any of the 3 presentations that you heard or questions to us as the commission? Feel free to come up to the mic and ask your question.
I'm not used to speaking in a mic. My name is Patty DeSoto. I'm married to John DeSoto, who was the chair of the city council for like 16 years. My background is agriculture. I'm a farmer. You have to tape me. I live in Makaha Valley. In 2018, all of us, our neighbors in Mauna Olu, were actually trapped in Makaha Valley by the flames. 31 years there, and I've seen so many changes. I had a barn, 7 acres in Makaha Valley. My stables were there. I gave that up because they were tapping out the water supply there. We had a beautiful stream. The kids used to run down into the stream, and they had a swimming hole all summer, crystal clear swimming hole. And the valley was so different from the way it is today. I lived 22 years, Waianae Valley, Upper Waianae Valley. That valley, the water has been tapped off. The streams no longer run. My ranch, I had 150 acres in Haleiwa, and I raised cattle. I also had not just the state's, but I think the nation's largest pony club. It's where we taught little girls to ride horses. We have so much fallow land now. We have huge landowners that don't utilize the land. Some of them are local people, some of them are not. And it's tragic. And I don't understand why government, who always talks about funding, doesn't say, look, you want to let your land be fallow? Fine. We're going to charge you 4 times more for property taxes. Take that money, invest in our kids in the schools, teach them about agriculture, grazing. Force them to let people go in and graze their animals, or let the school kids have programs where they can learn to raise cattle, raise sheep, raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. DeSoto. We appreciate your comments. I think we can agree with, using these unused fallow lands for additional purpose. This is our first in-person meeting that we've done in community, and I think we are going to try to find ways of gathering this information and representing it back to the council, to executives, what have you, maybe in the forms of how we convene information, right, through our white papers, what have you. But I do appreciate your statement. I think it is really valuable to make use of these unused lands. More are coming up, but also similarly, we have these unused lands in a lot of our other community and urban spaces, right? And as our communities get more dense, we need to find places really for our keiki to play and learn. And so I think there's value in what was said, and I think more thought from what the commission and the community needs to be had on how do we use these, I'm going to call it in-between spaces, to better capitalize on the value of our communities. So thank you for your comments.
Yes, thank you for your comments. The only thing I'll add is I think this would be a great item to bring up with the update of the Waianae Sustainable Communities Plan. So I know that the City and County of Honolulu Department of Planning and Permitting will start that process shortly. So I think this would be a really good topic of discussion and how we look at that item, like moving forward and looking into the future for how we permit and use land.
Thank you. Are there any other comments to what was shared that you'd like to share with the commission, share with the members in this room. Okay, well, I'm going to take it as we did a great job in our first meeting. So I just want to thank you all for attending. It was great to sort of be here and to share these topics. We do see synergy between all three presenters, all three topics. So I do hope there's further collaboration on this and just getting the great work done. It is now 5:51. I am going to call this meeting to adjourn. Thank you so much.